Hey guys, so today I wanted to make kind of a more theoretical video. This is just going to be explaining the method I use for my RPG that I'm working on right now, as well as, any other RPG. If I made another RPG, I would probably do it with a similar system. Pay no attention to, oh my gosh, all this stuff up here. I mean, hold on. It's not even letting me move it. Cool. Anyway, point is, so don't pay attention to all this good stuff up there. That's not important. What important is the system I'm using for the inventory and everything. So, don't be too worried about what I'm working on because I mean maybe you think it's cool, but it's not done yet, and it's gonna take a couple months. I might have a few like teasers out for it, but it's not gonna be done for a couple months. Anyway, so the first thing that I'm gonna first go over how I use like the inventory and how weapons and items work. So first we have the inventory. So if I go ahead and play it, I'll show you what the inventory looks like, and then I'll show you. I have paint pulled up here if I ever need to show you like what I mean. Anyways, so okay, it pulled up. Okay, so it takes a little bit longer now because it's a bigger game. So the hotbar shows 5 items, and if I hit I, if I hit oh if I hit I, it'll show an inventory like this. So you don't have to. I'm not saying that you have to use my method. I'm just saying this is the method I use, and I might make some tutorials on how I did this inventory system and stuff like that. I used someone else's tutorial for it, but then his didn't work that well for different sizes because there was a bunch of bugs. So I might show my version. Anyways, so how I set it up is that each row is a different type of item. So bows always go in this row, swords always go in the left row, staves always go in the third row, key always goes in the fourth. You don't have to set it up that way. It can be everywhere if you want. You hit enter and you can equip or delete the item. So I'm going to equip the better sword, which would be, I didn't do a texture for the better one, but that's the better one. And then we'll just delete that one, and let's just delete that one. So we don't need those. And then we also have the potions down here, which I had to do a little bit of extra work with so that um, they only work with themselves. So you can't move up. The potions can't go in this upper area, and the potions only equip to this first slot. And then this shows that these are potions because I wanted to make it simple. So I just put all of the stuff in the inventory with each other. So here we have like a smaller one equipped. Let's equip a bigger one. There we go. So another thing you may notice is look, the hotbar now updated. So for the hotbar, the system I use for that is it just equips it like basically when it's drawing out the hotbar, it draws the items that are in the top slot up here. Okay, so it has inventory and then it looks at the inventory and draws these items, and then it also draws this one too for the last slot. So that's just how that works. Now the other thing that this is like what I think is pretty cool. So what I did was let's go ahead and look at how I set up the swords. So the swords and the bows and everything is split into groups, but you really only have one. So there's only one obj underscore sword. Okay, so there's only one sword object. The sword swings and it does its little swing. This just is code to do the swing and do the attack and then reset the swing. So it's pretty simple. It may look complicated, but it's really just setting a timer and then adding to the angle so that it turns the sword a little bit, and then it adds to the angle the other direction so it swings it back, and then it just resets the timer and waits for you to click the button again. So this is also one of the important key parts. So here we have switch global.sword. So basically this is going to look at a variable called global.sword. I just made it a global variable for simplicity so that I don't have to always associate an object with it. So it's looking at global.sword, and it is saying if global.sword is 0, then it's going to make the sprite for this object be the wooden sword, and it's going to set the damage of this sword to 1 and the knockback of the sword to 5, and then it breaks. If it is 1, then it changes it to the wood iron sword, which is what you saw in the game when I had the level 2 sword. If you noticed, it had wood iron, kind of like iron and wood mixed. And this one is just for, this isn't like the actual stats of it, it's just because sometimes I want to cheat my way through the game, so I just use the wood iron sword so I can kill things real quick. So like, so the else statement comes all the way to the top, and this is the second key component. So basically, if the player, and there's this score, this variable called cycle. So with the hotbar, you have cycle, and then cycle can be like 1, 2, 3, or 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I just write cycly. cycles. So it can be 1, 2, 3, or 4. So if it's one, then it does the code for the sword. If it's 2, then it does the code for the bow. If it's 3, it does the code for the staff, and so on and so on. So it just is going to use this system so that it limits how much code there is here. So all it does is only if you are selected the sword in your hotbar, and if there is a sword in the hotbar. So this just checks if in the inventory at that slot there's actually an item. Basically, if it's not empty. Item.none means it's empty. So if it is, then it sets global.sword equal to box divided by 4. So what this is so the sword right here, the sword in the inventory is, let me actually, it might be helpful if I open the game, but the sword in the inventory has a number associated with it. So item.none is equal to 0, and wooden sword, item.woodsword is equal to 1. So it does 1 divided by 4 and then floor, so it gets rid of the decimal places. So 1 divided by 4 without the decimal places is just going to be, it's going to be 0. So global.sword equals 0. So we go here, case 0, then it does this stuff. Now, the downfall to this system is every time I want to add a new sword, I have to add one of each item or set the sword number equal to 4 more. So I have to be really specific on the numbers. So if you haven't guessed it, the iron wood sword's actual value is 5. So this one is 1, and then 4 more is 5. So if you have 5, then 5 divided by 4, then take off the decimal places, is just 1. And 1 is going to take us to the wood iron sword. So basically, I'm just using like variables associated with fake items in your inventory, to basically dictate what the sword's stats are. So that's just one of the cool things that I thought I did. This is just like, it makes it simpler because you don't have to have a separate object for each sword. And if you wanted to have like custom, so if you look in here, there's like custom variables with the bow. The bow is a little bit more complicated because to get it to shoot and stuff, it's a little more complicated, but it uses the same system for detecting which bow it is. So if it's the wood bow, this one I have a couple more variables. I have speed because the arrow has to have a certain speed. I also have wobble, which makes it so like it's your accuracy. So the higher this number, the less accurate it is. So I can just add these other things. You can add a variable down here called flame bow equals true. And then if you do that, and then you can put some code up here or maybe put a script that turns the arrows into flame arrows. So you can go to the arrow and you can create a switch state in here. So switch and then with, I don't know, some other variable to pick what type of arrow it is. So you can limit how many different objects you have in order to make your like coding and everything a lot simpler, so you don't have to be like, oh, which sword am I working with now? You don't have to like go through like, oh, there's swords, oh, there's 30 different swords. No, there's only one sword, and then the sword dictates, like based on the variable number, it dictates what sword it is. So I thought that was really useful. If you guys can definitely use that if you want. Same thing with the key. The key has the same thing. Key code is the code. Now it's a little bit more complicated because of the way that I have keys working, but anyways, key code, and then based on the variable here, it will assign a passcode, and then the doors have set codes that they need to see in order to unlock, and that's just how I do it in the game. So I have like a specific creation code for each door. So if I go in here, right here, this door right here, let's see, I think it's decorations, yeah. So this has a creation code specific to it that puts the code to be orc1. So if you're holding a key that has the key code of orc1, then it's naturally going to unlock. So this is just another really easy way to have multiple keys based on the code. And you can do tons of things with this. You can, like, when a key gets dropped in the game, you can initialize the variable of the key's code, like the key's number code, to be 0. So then when it's in your inventory, it's 0, and then when it's here, it's going to be 0, and then it's going to activate this key code. So it's really simple because then whenever I want to add a new key to unlock a door, I just have to add a case here, and then go into my inventory. Where is it? Inventory, this inventory one, and then just add it here as in like this. See, we have key equals 4, and then key 1 equals 8. So this will be the next key is key 1. And if I want to add key 2, I can just do key 2 equals plus 4, 12. There you go. So it's a really simple system of, using values associated with items to pick which item you're going to use. Now, this may look a little complicated, but I did make a tutorial initially, but then I realized there was a bunch of bugs, so I have to make it again if I'm going to make it. But this is just an inventory system with the moving stuff. It's kind of complicated, but not too bad if you know what arrays are from code. It's pretty similar to those. But yeah, so that's the inventory system and how I did these swords. I mean, other than that, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you guys because that's just I think that is really useful for if you're making if you're making like a RPG game and you want to have like a couple different weapons and then a couple different variations of weapons. A good way to do that is to, instead of making 20 objects for a sword, you have one object for a sword, change the textures around. That's all you have to do. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you want to see a tutorial on the inventory, I can definitely do that. I also have a shop system, which I think is pretty cool. If Here, let me take that out. Here we have the shop. The shop just has a bunch of swords in it, and each one does have a price which you can buy. But I don't have much set up right now. Only some of them have the purchase, the cost, and why would you want to buy this sword anyway? Let's see. One of these has it. Alright, it doesn't matter. Point is, oh, that one. Alright, point is, I have a bunch of cool stuff that I can show you guys if you want to see it, but they are really long tutorials, so I just, before I make them, I want to make sure that people are willing to see them, But other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.